Mr. Johnson is the president of the National Council of Textile Organizations. NCTO represents the entire domestic textile industry, including producers, manufacturers, and suppliers of these products. You will have 5 minutes to make your presentation. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Chairwoman Vasquez and Ranking Member Chabot, and distinguished members of the committee. We look forward to testifying today and outlining the U.S. textile industry's perspective on the state of small business exports. As a sector, the textile industry is one of the nation's most successful exporters. At $16 billion last year, we export 1 out of every 3 products we make. However, almost 3/4 of our exports go to the Western Hemisphere. Only 1/4 go to the rest of the world, and that includes the rapidly developing, rapidly growing economies in Asia, particularly China and India. In fact, we send China, a country with a population of 1.4 billion and which consumes more textile apparel products by far than any other country in the world, only $500 million a year in exports. And China, in fact, looks great compared to India, 1.1 billion population, one of the largest textile apparel consumers in the world, where we send only $55 million a year in textile exports. We send more to the United Arab Emirates each year than we do to India. Why is this happening? In the macro sense, we see, in addition to high duties, we see 3 major barriers. These are the VAT, currency manipulation, and government subsidies. Of these 3, probably the least understood is the VAT, or value-added tax. The VAT is a tax, it averages 15%, that is levied on exports from the United States to countries with a VAT system, and that is most countries in the world. Problem with the VAT is that U.S. exports are essentially taxed twice. They're taxed at home, companies pay corporate income taxes, then they're taxed when they go overseas. They get an average 15% tax in addition to the duty. When goods are exported from VAT countries, they get no taxes. These countries rebate the 15% tax, and then they are not charged any U.S. corporate income tax. So you have a situation where our goods being exported are exported twice, and goods coming from VAT countries have all taxes rebated from them. So it's a basic inequity. It's been estimated that the VAT tax costs U.S. manufacturers $341 billion every year. That is a huge stealth tax that holds back exporting in the United States. There's an answer to this. It's the Border Tax Equity Act, H.R. 2600, introduced by Congressman Michaud, a member of this committee. We would request that you look carefully at this act. It's a 3-pronged approach to remove the VAT disadvantage from U.S. exporters. The second barrier is currency manipulation issue that we've all heard about. One thing we haven't necessarily heard about is the tax that this puts on exports. We all know that we import a lot more from China because it manipulates the currency. The flip side of that equation is we can't export nearly as much to China because of the currency manipulation. It places the same 25 to 40% tax on exports as the advantage it gives to imports from China. There's an answer to this problem. It's H.R. 2942, the Currency Reform for Fair Trade Act, co-sponsored by Tim Ryan, and which has been supported by members of this committee. If Congress would pass this act, it would send a strong signal, the most powerful we can imagine, that China needs to float its currency. The third major problem are subsidies, particularly in China, India, and Vietnam. In a recent textile case, the government found that China offered its textile industry 24 different subsidies in order to export products cheaper to the United States, and they assigned countervailing duties of 27 to 359%. Most small and medium-sized companies cannot afford to file CVD cases. They start at $1 million apiece. The government needs to do more, and we suggest that Congress needs to send a strong signal that the government needs to do more. NCTO sent to USTR a list of 63 subsidies that China offers its textile industry. We sent that over a year ago. We're still waiting for a response. We know that many of these subsidies are WTO illegal and should be the genesis of a case against China. But we've been told by USTR that they simply do not have the resources right now to go after these 63 subsidies. We believe that Congress should change USTR's focus for the next 5 years, from negotiating new agreements to reviewing and enforcing existing agreements. USTR's resources should be reoriented towards verifying that China and others live up to the agreements they have signed, and if they are not, they should file cases against them at the WTO. With these steps, we believe we can usher in a new renaissance for the U.S. manufacturing sector and its workers, and we thank the committee very much for looking at this very important issue.